All politics is identity politics.
Welcome to Identity Politics, everyone. I'm DeAnna. What has been the point of the Donald Trump era? I don't think it's so much what he did or even what he represented, but what he revealed. Think of the things we've learned from just the last few years. Pretty much every Republican strategist, talking head, party boss, and even elected official who was once praised as the future of the conservative movement or the party has now openly joined the other side. Mitt Romney, John Kasich, Chris Christie, John McCain before he died, pretty much all his staffers, Paul Ryan, Bill Kristol, Trump's former vice president Mike Pence, anyone associated with the Lincoln Project. I mean, we could do a whole episode on just all these people. Some of these guys still pretend vaguely to be on the right. Others, like neocon extraordinaire Bill Kristol, went so far as to endorse Zohran Mamdani. But all these guys used to say, oh, we represent the American right, we're the intellectual leadership of what is fundamentally the mainstream political expression of white Christians, and actually it turns out they just hate these people. They want them utterly destroyed. They want us ground into the dirt. They utterly hate their own constituents, and they'll never regain their credibility, and we owe that to Trump. We also learned that the rule of law is completely meaningless, that the Constitution doesn't protect anything. Judges intervene to let habitual criminals out of prison on the basis of race or simply out of sheer spite for normal people. You aren't allowed to deport illegal immigrants. Nope, you just can't do it. You can get fined for basically infinity amounts of money, as Alex Jones learned, if a judge doesn't like what you have to say, but you can pretty much get away with whatever you want if you have the right ideology or the right skin color. And if a judge doesn't come through, a jury might. For example, a Mexican national living in Seattle was recently acquitted of ramming an ICE vehicle. BPR reported not long ago. The decision handed down on January 9, 2026, acquitted Vivanco Reyes, a Mexican national, of 4 felony counts of assaulting federal officers with a deadly weapon, a crime punishable by up to 20 years in prison and a $250,000 fine, regarding his attempt to escape those officers on Camaro Island during a second attempt to execute an immigration arrest warrant. Court documents allege that on June 6, 2025, federal agents wearing clearly marked body armor and traveling in unmarked vehicles had blocked the path of the illegal alien's vehicle after a period of surveillance following a previous attempt to execute the warrant. When one agent had partially exited a patrol vehicle with lights flashing, the prosecution alleged that Vivanco Reyes accelerated, collided with the vehicle, and pinned the agent's shoulder in the vehicle's door. A little later, we learned. As reporter Katie Davenport indicated, the jury's decision comes at a volatile time as federal agents have faced increasing harassment, threats, and actual violence, including numerous instances involving vehicles impeding their travel. Leftist activists are praising the acquittal, saying no Seattle jury will convict subjects accused of targeting ICE agents, detailed Davenport. They are calling for more attacks. Now, in theory, this guy will still get deported, but who knows? Maybe some judge will say actually he's entitled to a congressional seat. Certainly, the legal system does not work the way we are told it does. We learn that the media often just makes things up based on no sources whatsoever, or on things it knows to be a lie. The continuing chaos that Russiagate itself alone has caused this country shows how easy it is to divide everyone with just outrageous slander. Hunter Biden's laptop is Russian disinformation. That's a lie. And it was a lie used to censor outlets in 2020 and arguably throw the entire presidential election. And if you reported on it, that would be enough to get your reach limited. The only reason we have slightly more free speech now than we did 4 years ago is because out of nowhere, the world's richest man, against his own eventual will, was basically forced into buying Twitter. And that was probably the reason Trump was able to win in 2024. Otherwise, we'd all just be getting literally fake news and we wouldn't even know how to tell the difference. We've learned that there are absolutely no neutral institutions. You want to go get social services? Well, it depends on your race, whether you're going to get it or not. Oh, the military and the police and the prosecutor's offices are dedicated to certain codes of behavior and they're neutral. Are they? When the White House was attacked by a mob in 2020, the military under General Mark Milley essentially refused to obey the orders of the commander-in-chief. We now openly talk about the deep state, the intelligence community, the interests of the people involved in these institutions, the independent agendas that they pursue. All of this is taken utterly for granted by everyone. It would have sounded literally insane a decade ago. And now we just know that those who are permanently in power in the bureaucracy are never voted for. They have interests of their own, and they have more power than our elected representatives. And of course, we learned about the amount of fraud. Like, why is the cost of living up? I mean, spending, of course, but spending on what? Well, it turns out that you're basically paying for your own dispossession. And those who are imported here to make your lives worse on purpose simply do not have to worry about paying for food or housing or legal aid or medical care. You have to do those things. In fact, you have to pay for them. There are special programs that essentially shovel them money in exchange for votes. You don't get them. You are poor because you are being robbed. And it's being done to you on purpose by those who profit at your expense and partially just because they think it's funny. We owe Trump a lot for getting us to this point. He may not be the guy who solves our problems. He may not be Caesar or something like that, but he's the guy who paves the way. He's showing people the real nature of the system they live under, if only because of the way it is overreacted to him. And now, perhaps it is time for the final lesson. What is the thing that defines the state? What makes it the state? It's the monopoly of violence. If I shoot you, it's a crime. If the state executes you, it's justice. And you can complain about this, but you will be crushed. That's what order is. That's what the state is. Political Science 101. Just about everybody concedes this is better than anarchy. But who controls the state? Because we've kind of learned that the law is not really a thing, if it ever was. It certainly doesn't exist now. I think the rule of law ended about 20 million illegal immigrants ago, probably more like 40. And what the law says actually doesn't very much matter, because you can just make up whatever you want if you're a judge. And the people who don't even have the right to be in this country have more rights than you do. In fact, the rules of the state only seem to matter when it's time to prevent you from solving an obvious problem. And so one major consequence of the age of Trump is that every single formally prestigious institution in our society has so beclowned itself that nobody respects mere authority anymore. So you get this sort of underlying anarchy, even as the state grows bigger and bigger. Consider the situation in Minnesota. You have public officials, state and local officials, saying that ICE should not be operating in their city, that federal law enforcement somehow does not have the right to operate within this country. Mayor Jacob Frey hinted that Minneapolis police should actually be mixing it up with ICE. And Tim Walz said that the state was at war with the federal government before he backed down. Now, if it goes much farther, President Trump will probably invoke the Insurrection Act, which he hasn't felt the need to do yet. But what the left is doing now is not really official defiance of the feds. They're hinting at it. But that would be too straightforward in some ways. Instead, what they're doing is they're letting their auxiliaries on the street do the work. So while Minneapolis police are seemingly nowhere to be seen, left-wingers have formed their own patrols. They're following around ICE agents. They're trying to release criminals. They're forcing confrontations. This we all know. But the bigger problem is that these people think they are some kind of an authority, and maybe they are. So, for example, they're confronting random white people having lunch, accusing them of being ICE agents or ICE supporters. For example, here they are chasing a guy and attacking him before someone says, actually, wait, he's one of us, and they realize they probably attacked their own guy.
That's all they asked me. Watch out. He's one of us. Okay. He's one of us. Okay, good. You all right, dude? You all right? Come on. He's one of us.
How do we know? How we know?
I was with him earlier.
Why you get ran out earlier?
I don't know, but he's one of us.
I'm with them.
Trust me.
Wonderful people on it.
He's been with us the whole time.
You touch us, bro. You good?
You all right, man?
Hey, move back! Move back! All right? Move back right now!
Back up. Back up.
Yeah, save your Nazi. Put him in your Nazi van. Go get him some help. He needs a little bit of fucking mental health there. Don't he?
Nobody got guns.
Yeah, you gonna look me in the eye when you spray me? You gonna look me in the eye when you spray me?
You get the usual burnings of the American flags.
Dollars do run. Well, we can rip it up, right?
When Nick Sorter showed up to document what was going on, Somali thugs promptly stole his camera and then lectured him about how he doesn't belong in their city.
Hey, get! What did she just do? She fucking...
Oh shit. Okay, it's okay.
She took Nick's camera. She just stole Nick's camera. Let's get her.
No, give him the camera! Give him the camera!
Just tell her to give him the camera back.
Give him the camera!
What happened, Nick?
They just stole my camera.
Right out of your hand while you're in the car?
That's what the fuck you wanted, right? That's the fuck you wanted, right?
That's what you did.
Man, listen, motherfucker, you better get the fuck up out of here.
My daughter.
You fucking coward. Motherfucker, you a coward, bitch.
You have to leave.
You a fucking coward. Get robbed, you motherfucker. Get the
They
fuck
just
up out
stole
of here.
$1,000 worth of
Bitch.
equipment from me.
You fucking coward. You a fucking coward,
And
motherfucker.
nobody stepped
Motherfucker,
in.
you trying to incite that shit.
Nobody stepped in.
Get the fuck up out of here, bro.
$1,000 worth of
Yeah,
equipment.
fuck you, fucking bitch.
Did you call that? Did anybody call
Why are
911?
you in this neighborhood?
Have Kevin do it.
You fucking Nazi.
We got it all on video.
We're not
right?
Nazis.
Man, you fucking Nazi.
We're not Nazis and we're not racist. I condemn Hitler completely.
You a fucking racist, bitch.
I'm not racist. I condemn all
I swear to
racism.
God, you a fucking Nazi.
I condemn all racism.
This neighborhood. Why are you here?
We were driving through and we got followed.
You
You guys followed us.
No, we're following you because who are you?
It doesn't matter. We're allowed to be here. It's the United States of America.
You have to leave.
Why do we have to leave?
What? They just.
We're not leaving till we get the camera. You want us to leave? Give us the camera. Call your friend, get the camera back, and we'll leave.
Who took the camera? Because if you guys want to scream racism, but yet you're treating him like this, why? Why? Racism can go both ways.
You've been driving around 2 hours fucking recording me.
You guys were.
And when Jake Lang tried to do this pro-ICE thing, he was basically mobbed and beaten. And then, of course, they try to pull him from the car, too.
That's him! That's him!
Is that him? Is that him?
Yes! Open the door!
Oh my God.
Drive!
Oh my God.
Just drive! Stop! Wait, let them go! Let them go!
Hey, pull over. Pull over. Hey, leave it.
Get out of
Leave
here.
it up.
Get out of here.
No.
Y'all just let him leave! It's not working! Hey!
We don't know him. Stop
Hey,
it.
let him out. Let him out.
We got his back!
And you can just do all these things. I mean, none of these people will ever face any consequences. Why should they? They know this. And incidentally, supposedly the only reason he even got a ride there was from some transsexual who thought he was beaten by ICE or something like that. And you could say, oh, well, this guy's being a gadfly. What's the point of doing a small protest in the midst of this where the optics are going to be against you and the numbers? Yeah, sure, fine. But the point is, in theory, in this country, you're not allowed to just have mobs of people essentially trying to lynch you without at least some involvement from law enforcement, but actually you are. And we all kind of know this. And even when it's on video, usually video by the guys committing the crime, you would think there'd be some sort of action, but of course you'd be wrong. Of course there's not going to be any action. Why would the police care? This is what you're allowed to do if you have the right politics. This is the way power actually works. The law is not a thing. And of course, the most dramatic incident was when a group of anti-ICE protesters decided to simply invade a church. This is that incident. Take a look.
Renee Good! Renee Good! Renee Good! Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Where are your people? Why are you not at Whipple every day fighting for the humanity, standing for our people? Where are you? You drink your coffee, you got your jewelry, you have your nice clothes, but what do you do? What do you do to stand for your Somali and Latino communities? I'm not going to comment. You have no comment, exactly. Say your name! Say your name! Renee Good! Renee Good!
Freedom! We have a duty to win! We must love and support one another!
All these comfortable white people who are living lavish, comfortable lives while children are dragged into concentration camps. You're living real life, nice lives with your lattes, doing absolutely nothing for your Latino and Somali brothers and sisters. You come here to a man wearing a suit. Is a preacher? Did Jesus wear a suit? Did Jesus profit off the words? No! Jesus would dine with immigrants. Do not touch me. Touch me again and see what happens.
Hey, you can't.
You are a fake Christian. Why are you not standing with your Somali and Latino communities? Why do I not see you out at Whipple every day protesting this attack on humanity? Where are you? You're sinners. You're pretending to be Christians. But we know you live an easy life, don't you? A very easy life while people are starving. Shame. Out now. Out now. Living real comfortable while the people starve. Living real comfortable while children are dragged into concentration camps. You're all living real comfortable, aren't you? Shame on you. Do something. Stand with the Somalis. Stand with the Latinos. Quit ignoring this injustice. He wears a suit and tie and he hangs out with Kristi Noem. How is that a Christian? You're supposed to accept all immigrants, are you not? Why are you not going down to Whipple and joining us in protest against this inhumanity? You claim to be a Christian. Act like one.
And again, this is not some particularly right-wing church. No one fights back. No one really even argues back. They seem utterly cowed.
You drink your coffee, you got your jewelry, you have your nice clothes, but what do you do? What do you do to stand for your Somali and Latino communities?
I'm not going to comment.
You have no comment, exactly.
Now, again, before we get into what's going to happen next, you have to ask yourself the following question, based on what you've just seen. Who are the people motivated by religious zeal here? Who are the people willing to fight, to die, perhaps more importantly, to kill? Who are the people who are truly motivated by an absolutely pure spirit of self-righteousness? In other words, who has the stronger faith? Maybe that's a question for another day, but for those of you wondering why things seem to only go in one direction, perhaps that's something worth considering in terms of how we got here. But let's consider what's going to happen next. You may be thinking to yourself, like, are you really allowed to just barge into a church and start berating everyone? Well, no, you are not, in fact, allowed to do that. Breitbart reports, the Department of Justice is investigating potential violations of the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances, FACE Act, and the KKK Act after anti-ICE protesters stormed a church in Minnesota on Sunday. The move is a stark departure from the authoritarian Biden DOJ, which used the same federal laws to prosecute and imprison nearly 24 peaceful pro-life activists, including an 89-year-old communist concentration camp survivor, several grandmothers, and a Christian father of 11. Anti-ICE protesters stormed City's Church in Minneapolis and accused the pastor of being a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent. In a live YouTube video recorded by former CNN host Dan Lemon, protesters were seen occupying the church and chanting "Hands up, don't shoot," and "ICE out." Lemon was heard clarifying on video that he was, quote, not part of the group, and that he was just there photographing. Now, quick departure. We're going to return to Don Lemon's claims here in just a second. But there are many reasons to doubt what he's saying. More importantly, though, hands up, don't shoot. We're still doing this. This goes all the way back to the Michael Brown case in Ferguson, Missouri. The claim was that Michael Brown had his hands up when he was shot on August 9th, 2014, pretty much the beginning of the modern Black Lives Matter movement. This did not happen. This is a complete lie. The Obama DOJ concluded it was a lie. I think if they could do it over again, they would just say it happened. But at the time, they said, no, this didn't happen. And it just doesn't matter. It's just repeated forever. Here we are. It's 2026. 12 years later, we're still doing this. It's like Marie Antoinette saying, let them eat cake or something. It just never happened. It's totally made up, but it's used to justify outrageous actions. Now, to return to this case, is it an illegal action? Well, very possibly. To return to what Breitbart says, quote, Jonathan Parnell, the lead pastor, described the protest as unacceptable, adding that it is shameful to interrupt a public gathering of Christians in worship. The Civil Rights Division is investigating the potential violations of the Federal FACE Act by these people desecrating a house of worship and interfering with Christian worshipers. Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division, Harmis Dillon, said in a post to X on Sunday evening. The FACE Act is a 1994 law that prohibits the use or threat of force and physical obstruction that injures, intimidates, or interferes with a person seeking to obtain or provide reproductive health services or to exercise the First Amendment right of religious freedom at a place of religious worship, unquote. The act was written to equally protect abortion clinics, pro-life pregnancy resource centers, and churches. However, data indicates 97% of FACE Act cases since the law's inception have been against pro-life advocates. The Biden administration is responsible for prosecuting more than a quarter of all FACE Act cases, with the DOJ aggressively pursuing cases against pro-life activists in the wake of the Supreme Court's 2022 Dobbs decision, which overturned the invented constitutional right to abortion. Biden's DOJ targeted pro-life activists even though pregnancy resource centers and churches experienced more than 100 attacks, including vandalism and fire bombings, in the wake of a leak of the Dobbs decision, unquote. Now, the real fun is that there's something called conspiracy against rights. What is that? This is also called the KKK Act. This is important. Breitbart explains. The Conspiracy Against Rights statute was passed in 1870 after the Civil War when members of the Ku Klux Klan terrorized black citizens for exercising the right to vote, running for public office, and serving on juries, according to the U.S. Senate's website. In response, Congress passed a series of statutes to end such violence and empower the president to use military force to protect African Americans. Conspiracy Against Rights specifically makes it unlawful for two or more persons to a degree to injure, threaten, or intimidate a person in the United States in the free exercise or enjoyment of any right or privilege secured by the Constitution or laws of the United States or because of his or her having exercised such a right, according to the DOJ. Now, wait a minute, you might be asking. Let's go back to one of the most important debates from earlier this year when people were talking about labeling Antifa a terrorist group. What does Antifa exist to do? Like, I'm not insulting them. I'm not just making things up. I think they'd agree. What is their purpose? They exist to prevent the ability of those they regard as fascists or Nazis to organize, to meet, to have a platform to spread their ideas or spread their propaganda if you're being uncharitable. Sounds an awful lot like an organization explicitly built around the purpose of denying some Americans their First Amendment rights. Yeah, you'd be right to think that. But have you ever heard of the law being used in this way against them? I have not. It seems strange. It seems pretty open and shut. Now, of course, the real fun here would be if they used the FACE Act and the KKK Act in this case, because obviously those laws were not meant to be used against people like this. Now, the rule of law, in theory, applies to everyone, protects everyone. But we aren't children, and as I said before, Trump has shown us that the rule of law is not really a thing. These guys did this because they think nothing can happen to them. And maybe they're right. So, for example, who's the Attorney General of Minnesota? Keith Ellison. Now, Keith Ellison, again, not a smear to say this, he is a black nationalist. In law school, specifically arguing for a black separatist state, defending people like Malik Shabazz. It's simply a bald statement of fact that he is not an American. He is a black separatist. We share no identity with him whatsoever. He knows this. His supporters know this. Everybody knows this. But he is Attorney General of Minnesota because of our idiotic system. So here's what he has to say.
And the FACE Act, by the way, is designed to protect the rights of people seeking their reproductive rights to be protected, and so that people, for a religious reason, cannot just use religion to break into women's reproductive health centers, right? So how they are stretching either of these laws to apply to people who protested in a church over the behavior or the perceived behavior of a religious leader is beyond me.
Now, again, the law in theory says what it says. Like, that's how it's supposed to work. What it says, of course, is this right here, if you take a look at that. Now, it's not that you are allowed to interfere with certain things and not others. There's not like an ideological test here. And yet, Keith Ellison is probably closer to the truth in terms of how these things actually work. Like, you can imagine some black judge going, well, the law says this, but really what it's about is making sure old ladies aren't traumatizing libtarded women going to have an abortion by praying quietly outside. You're still allowed to barge into churches and scream at people and make children cry. Like, that's how it actually is supposed to work. And they'd be right to say that. Like, that is the intention of these sorts of things. Now, a lot of people right now are saying, well, Trump's not going to do anything and, it's just going to be another betrayal and whatever else. Well, look, the DOJ did just say, we've seen this, we're looking into it right now, I think there's a crime. Maybe we should give it a sec before we start unveiling the accusations of treason. But let's be honest here. Let's say some Christians entered a mosque. Who can doubt that there would be violence inflicted on them? And then the Christians that survived anyway would be arrested afterward. Let's go further. Let's say some pro-Palestine protesters burst into a synagogue and started screaming at people. I mean, can you imagine? It'd be the biggest news story in the country, in the world. You better believe everybody would be in jail. And it's not even because Christians specifically aren't protected. Say you had some white people going into one of these black churches with something to say about how, well, these black churches are basically just components of the Democrat GOTV effort. How they basically are just part of the party, how they worship the racist God, how they excuse and defend the behavior that has annihilated our major cities more surely than any atomic bombing. Anyone think that anyone who burst into a black church like that wouldn't be immediately arrested, wouldn't be hit with a hate crime or ethnic intimidation or something like that? I mean, to ask the question is to answer it. So again, it's not just that the law is meant to be about protecting abortion or that it wouldn't apply to Jews or Muslims or black Christians. It's that whites. And this isn't even like a white church, a specifically white church. In the film, you can see non-whites in the congregation, but it's a predominantly white church. And therefore, it is held to be morally illegitimate and under no protection of law. And even the Trump administration has to think about it, has to investigate for a while. So I know what you're thinking, where's Don Lemon in all this? So, journalist, right? I mean, they lie as naturally as they breathe. He was there. He supports it, of course, but he's a journalist. He's not really part of it. Journos don't take sides. So here's Lemon saying that the point of protesting is to make people uncomfortable.
You heard what some of the folks said in there, that this is, they shouldn't be there and, they shouldn't be uncomfortable and this is our house and whatever. That's what protesting is about, is to make people uncomfortable. You may not like it, but I mean, if they went into a church, any church.
And of course, even the kids kind of have it coming.
Watch this guy here, look, he's hugging his kid. I imagine it's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here. But again, careful, it's very slippery right here. Yeah. It's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here, but that's what really, careful, please, really slippery. Not kidding. That's what protesting is about. And so.
That's what protesting is about. Isn't it inspiring? It's about democracy. It's about making people uncomfortable. It's about speaking truth to power. I mean, I think some of the scum who rule us and their journo friends were pretty uncomfortable on January 6th. And those were people with power, not just random churchgoers. But, that's different, I guess. Anyway, the real question is whether he knew whether this was going to go down.
After we do this operation, you'll see it live. And these operations are surprise operations. Again, can't tell you where they're going.
Notice that phrase there. What did he say? After we do this operation. Kind of an interesting way to phrase something you supposedly have no knowledge of, isn't it? I have nothing to do with it, but, after we do this, okay, maybe it's a little ambiguous, but people have been convicted on less. And I'm being fair-minded to a fault here, but pretty suspicious in any event. The DOJ has supposedly officially put him on notice. The New York Post reports. Trump's DOJ puts Don Lemon on notice after joining anti-ICE mob that stormed church. Frequently fired independent news commentator Don Lemon has been warned by the Justice Department over allegations he joined a mob of anti-ICE protesters who stormed a Sunday church service in St. Paul. A house of worship is not a public forum for your protest. It is a space protected from exactly such acts by federal criminal and civil laws. Nor does the First Amendment protect your pseudo-journalism of disrupting a prayer service. Harmeet Dillon, the Justice Department's Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, chided Lemon on X. "You are on notice," she wrote, noting in a follow-up post that the FBI has been activated and accusing the protesters of desecrating a house of worship and interfering with Christian worshipers, unquote. But it's not like these people don't have defenders. So Congressman Adelita Graviola, some foreigner who for some reason is in our Congress, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, he says he was asked whether they violated the law, whether this is a bad thing that they did, and he says, no, I don't. I think that when they find out that someone who's supposed to be speaking for the community in a church is found out to be an ICE, like a federal agent that is running ICE in their communities, they have the right to go in there. Churches have always been an open door. And from my understanding, in the videos that I saw, those protesters were not violent in any way. Now, again, what does this foreign congressman really believe here? Doesn't apply to a mosque, to a synagogue, to a black church, of course, that goes without saying. But notice the ideological test he just simply invents here. Like someone being in federal law enforcement then gives people special rights to confront him. And if we can speak truth to power, then I don't understand why boomers can't take a stroll through the Capitol whenever they feel like it without congressmen crying. But of course, what does this dude care? He's not American. He knows he's not American. He supports the foreign invasion, and that's why he supports this action. There's another state rep out of Minnesota called Leah Fink. I'm not going to show a picture because it's a tranny state rep, but she, he, it, whatever, posted the following on Facebook. Yesterday, protesters disrupted services at City's Church in St. Paul, with the leader of the local ICE office also serves as pastor. The protest has caused outrage, promises of retribution and prosecution, and the usual round of upset. But it has me thinking for the past 24 hours of the actions of ACT UP and Wham! In 1989, who staged a dying in protest in St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York, an action that similarly brought condemnation during a time when an out-of-control crisis was left to its destruction for far too long. Actions like this, nonviolent resistance in the face of government inaction or oppression, are essential, and they must continue until ICE is out of our state, the administration is out of the White House, and dignity and humanity for all of our neighbors is achieved. Today is Martin Luther King Jr. Day in America. Dr. King knew that injustice must be confronted. He knew the moral conscience of the nation must be made to hear the desperate plight of those who are suffering. He knew that the only way to achieve this at a national scale was for people to rise up together in nonviolent revolution until all were free. So did ACT UP, so did the people of Minneapolis, ICE out. Now, an interesting comparison here. ACT UP famously disrupted Catholic masses. In 1989, the specific thing cited here, this included a public act of host desecration in St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City during Mass. Now, of course, why were they doing this? Oh, AIDS is a crisis. Why is AIDS a crisis? The reason it became a plague is because when it started, local health officials, they knew who was spreading it. And they said, stop doing this. I'm not even going to say what they were doing, but we all know. Stop behaving in a certain way, let's call it irresponsibly, to put it delicately, because you are spreading this disease and you are killing everyone. And they said, no, we have a right to do this. And we would rather die than behave in a decent way. And actually, this is everyone else's fault. And actually, this means we can go into a Roman Catholic church and desecrate the host, which, if you're a Roman Catholic, is probably the most profound act of desecration you can possibly imagine. But to them, this is heroic. And decades later, this is the model they want to follow. Get it through your head how much these people hate you. Now, the New York Times, of course, reluctantly covers this, but how do they cover it? They cover it like it's somehow ICE's fault. Protest at Minnesota church service adds to tensions over ICE tactics. Now, most people are not going to read past the headlines. Journalists know this. And so most people who read that headline are going to assume ICE did something at the church. And this is the intent. Quick excerpt from the article here. At the event, hosted by Black Lives Matter Minnesota and other local organizations, cheers went up when the incident at City's Church was mentioned. The church protest over the weekend was organized by Nakima Levy Armstrong, a civil rights lawyer. She said she wanted to draw attention to a church leader, David Esterwood, who also appears to be the acting director of ICE's field office for enforcement and removal operations in St. Paul, and who was named in a lawsuit challenging aggressive enforcement tactics. The church, Mr. Easterwood and Jonathan Parnell, the lead pastor leading service on Sunday, did not immediately respond to calls or requests for comment. It was unclear whether Mr. Easterwood was present in the church during the protest on Sunday. Well, who's this Nikema Livy Armstrong? Of course, according to the 2024 990, which is publicly available, she makes over $200,000 a year working for an NGO called the Wayfinder Foundation. Now, that's in addition to all the other groups she's working with, which looks like quite a few. And here's her taking responsibility for the protest on social media, specifically thanking Don Lemon, which seems to give the lie to the idea that this guy wasn't involved. Now, again, if my own boss, Morton Blackwell, is right and victory in politics belongs to the side with the greater number of effective activists, why are we losing? Because these people are getting paid to do this, and therefore there is more of them. There's a huge amount of charities, philanthropies, organizations, donor networks, taxpayer grants, government jobs, all sorts of things, many of which you are paying for in one way or another. And this allows the left to essentially give its activists full-time jobs, quite lucrative jobs, in fact, where they can do this kind of thing. The protest is part of the job. Like, is this not what the Somali fraud story is about in its essence? And it was workers and NGOs who basically couched these people how to get these kinds of grants. And really what this entire thing gets down to is who's going to control the state. That's really the overall theme of everything. These mobs are essentially quasi-legal. In one way or another, you fund them. They're tax exempt at the very least, supported by supposed charities and philanthropies that most people think of as non-political, even though they're not. The state and local authorities let them run wild. They assume that the law does not apply to them, and they are right. They are right to assume this. Why should it? It never has. Why do we even have the KKK Act or these sorts of things? It's because liberals had this idea back in the day, and this was not that long ago, it's only a couple decades, that like white Southerners would be terrorizing black churches and good old boys wouldn't prosecute or something like that. No, that's not the way this country works. What actually happens is it's precisely the diverse, sophisticated, cosmopolitan urban elites who see crimes in front of them and say, you know what? We're just not going to do anything about it. We're just not going to enforce laws we don't like, or more accurately, we're not going to enforce laws when it comes to people that we don't like, that we like these crimes being committed against our political enemies, that we approve of these crimes being committed against our political enemies, and we're not going to take any action. That's what's really happening. And it's race even more than religion, the protection of the law. Like if you are white, the law will not do anything to help you. These state and local officials are getting elected because they promise not to use the law to protect white people. So what are you left with? Who's the only people who can do anything? The feds. This is where we are. So the question becomes, does federal law apply in Minnesota? Or is the law actually just left-wing mobs on the streets? Is that who actually gets to dictate how things go? And this is not a mere rhetorical question. Like during China's Cultural Revolution, the Red Guards were never really legal. It's not like Mao said, guess what? Random college students can run around and just kill people. It doesn't work that way. It's just people were ordered to stand down, and then you got your reign of terror. So it is here. This is how it works. Now, the Insurrection Act may be forthcoming at some point, but when it comes to the situation, we don't even need that. These people need to be up on charges. It's open and shut. It's on video. It's on a video they provided themselves. And if they aren't, then we know. The state does not have the monopoly on violence. The law does not apply, not even in theory. It's just whom. And if we have gotten to that point, and we may have gotten to that point, the fear of force, the fact that they have the guns, that is the only thing that should keep you in obedience. You don't owe anything to a system that doesn't fulfill its basic responsibilities toward you. And frankly, if you're white and you're on the right in Minnesota, you're already past that point. You remember why Obama was president? Remember why they said we needed to vote for this guy? Because he would move us beyond race. Because there is no white America or black America or blue America or red America. We're all just Americans. Well, I mean, that was always nonsense, and we all kind of knew it was nonsense, but they told us it wasn't. But here's Michelle Obama, one of the great unifying figures of our time, and what she has to say.
If I hear of someone whose fashion that I like, and I know that they're a person of color, I try to make it a point. But the clothes have to be available. Right. I think we can all do some work to think about that balance in our wardrobes, what does our closet look like and who's in it? Who are we supporting in it?
Right.
You know, and I think if you have the money to buy Chanel, then you have the money to buy everybody.
Right.
And so let us be mindful, I think would be my advice.
Yeah.
Now, I don't begrudge her not wanting to support white-owned brands. I don't begrudge her wanting all of her money to only go to members of her race. But the key is this. You are not allowed to do that if you are white, at least not to coordinate it. Maybe if you quietly do it yourself and don't tell anyone, you can get away with it. But the idea that you can use organized economic and political power to only support your one race, that is specifically what every single piece of civil rights legislation has been designed to prevent white people from doing since the 1960s. And this is the key. Everybody really is a blood and soil nationalist for their own race. Everybody is a racist in some way. Even the people who are post-racial. And this is the key about Michelle Obama. Her whole life is a gift from her betters. She was admitted to Princeton under affirmative action. You can find her papers out there. She is barely literate. This is not an intelligent person. Her jobs are fake. It's these kinds of set-asides where you get a position to talk about diversity or outreach or something at a hospital or whatever it is. Steve Saylor wrote about this a long time ago and had her pegged because she represents the rage of a privileged class. The more you give these people, the more set-asides, the more they hate you. Because at some level, they know. They know you are just sort of paying them off. They know they don't deserve their position. They know they've done nothing to earn it. But they don't express gratitude. They express hatred because at some level, they look around and they know that they are an object of pity and charity. And that manifests as resentment. You know, just about a week ago, there was an expose, of course, by one of these reporters talking about Patriot Front because some of these guys had started some businesses to support their families and their communities. And they were talking about this like this was the greatest scandal of all time. Now, of course, when it comes to every other race, even Michelle Obama, former First Lady of the United States, it is taken as self-evidently good, positive, moral, something to follow, an inspiration, that she only wants to support her own race. But when white people do it, especially because we've been cast out of government contracts and all these different programs and whatever else, now it's a problem. If they didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have any standards at all. You are in a racial battle. Get it through your head. Nobody is post-racial. When people say they are post-racial, it is a lie designed to get you to lower your defenses. Take your own side, because even if you don't, everybody else still will. I'll see you next time.